Welcome back to the Anachroschism. When we left off last time, the party had been traveling to Sheepstop Hollow, Grail's former home, and along the way had been doing some soul searching and really working through some things along the back of the wagon especially, but we pick up now as you guys are essentially pulling up to the ranch because you were most of the way there when we left off last time. Everybody make a perception check. Grail, you can do it with advantage.
Perception check.
Or I
Guess who's not in roll 20?
Ooh.
I mean, I was on my way, but I wasn't expecting a perception check right away.
To be fair, I don't have Thea's sheet up either, so you know there's mistakes all over the place.
I will roll with advantage.
There we go.
I have decreed myself.
Advantaged.
Well,
she has a plus
something.
1. But...
A 21. I'm
Yeah.
on my game. This is Grail's home.
I don't know what that means exactly, but I'm fine with it.
It's very important to Isaac. He's in the home of Grail.
22.
Okay.
20 from me.
Damn.
You
Yeah,
guys are really on point right now.
yeah, you're gonna be the lowest.
I know.
Oh no, you're not.
What am I?
You crit,
critted,
so it's
so-
22.
Oh, cool.
Oh.
Okay.
So I think we got this place scouted. We got all the X's covered.
yeah.
We can do like a full body count of all the sheep. We know.
What did Karash get?
17. I'm
Damn.
the low man.
Yeah, so's Thea. She rolled a 16, but she only has a plus 1, so 17.
Even Crash is like, "What's up?"
Yeah, so everybody has a nice, really. I mean, there's. So as you guys roll up on this, you see. I mean, it's all pretty like it's leveled now. Whatever trees that had been in the area as you were passing along this path have now been cleared out in this vast opening, and you see a huge, like fenced-in area with sheep milling about. You see what appears to be a pretty large house on the ranch that you're kind of rolling up on. It's still a ways off, but you can see it because it's big enough, even as you're approaching. Grail, what you notice in particular is obviously there was a point that you remember where there was virtually nothing here after the ranch was burned, and you know it had been rebuilt to some extent. The sheep are plentiful, but not as... There's not as many of them as there should be. If things were continuing to recover since you left, there should be more sheep here by your calculations. It's not like, again, there's plenty of them, but you know what life was like before the ranch was attacked. You know what kind of business the ranch was producing. And while some people, like with an untrained eye, wouldn't know that this was thinner times, leaner times, you know, even just at a quick glance, like, this is not great. This is
taking the sheep.
barely better than you left it a few months ago when you departed for the last time that you visited, and then eventually ran into Isaac. I guess it was more like a month ago, but there should have been more business done since then, and there definitely has not been.
Okay. I'm not going to say anything about that, but I'm going to be on high alert.
For wolves.
Yes. For wolves is...
The other thing you notice as you kind of get closer to the house, Grail in particular, but pretty much everybody can at least see this. They may not know what it means like Grail does, but there is a stable area, and there are no horses in it. Just empty for the time being, and you don't really see them as you're riding across, you know, this side of the ranch that you're on. But again, your vision is really not blocked by anything. You have a full scope ahead of you because everything is so open in this area, and unless one of the horses is hiding behind one of the sheep, there don't appear to be any horses in the stable either.
Can I do a perception check on Grail? I want to see, or insight. Oh, is that? Yeah, that's a thing in this. I want to see if I can tell that she's like, huh, this is concerning.
Sure. A perception check. You see Grail.
7.
She's in the wagon.
She seems fine. So.
Yeah, got a poker face. Done nothing wrong.
So I would say, well, Grail, how do you feel being home?
I'm going to keep looking where I'm looking, like at, the ranch. So I'm not going to actually, like, acknowledge that I have heard him, but I will eventually say, well, I don't know. It's good to be home, but I don't particularly care for the circumstances.
Just gonna let that rock. I don't want to like force her to talk. Grail, you must open up. That's fine.
It's
I've never
time.
stopped you with Tessian before. What's up with this nonsense?
Well, I respect Grail.
There it is.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, who can argue with that? You guys with the wagon roll up to the front. And what would you like to do? Tie up the wagon, approach the house, don't approach the house, search for traps. What are we looking at here?
Well, despite all of the weirdness, and maybe because of the weirdness, I'm gonna just hop out of the cart and start heading for the door of the main house.
And I was gonna say I'm following Grail.
I'm going to just very quickly tie up the wagon, but it's going to be kind of haphazard because I also want to join everyone.
Everybody
to
just
the
jumps
house.
out of the cart. It just keeps going.
We have done that before. It's not the first time.
Grail's like marching in, and we're all like, "Oh shit!" We I was trying to keep up.
Yeah, just tumbling out of the wagon. You're not prepared. Whoa. All right. So you're able to find a fence post easily enough to tie the horses to, Lena.
Okay.
Grell, you approach the familiar front door.
Okay. Can I, before I because I do want to knock, but before I do I notice it, should I roll for something, but do I notice anything weird, like door being open, windows being, anything like there was any kind of issue? I don't know.
You can make an investigation check.
Okay.
You're gonna knock on your own home?
Well, yeah, they don't expect me, and I don't want to just be barging in. I feel like that is weird.
That could get awkward. Oh, Mom, no!
She's got a shotgun. She's sitting in a rocking chair looking at the door.
I know. Well, it's true, and also you don't want to startle ranch people because they will shoot you. Yeah, 22.
Looking around, things are pretty much as you remember them. Obviously, there were some parts of the house that had to be rebuilt more than others, some areas that were more damaged by the fire. But you were around for at least pieces of that in, coming and going with your brother from time to time. So you have an idea of what things look like since they were rebuilt. There's no signs of forced entry. There's no broken windows or anything. The front of the house looks pretty much as you would expect it to. And you also know that, your family doesn't exactly have any help, and none of you or your siblings are there anymore, so there shouldn't be a whole lot of people around.
Okay. I'm gonna knock and say, Ma, Pa, it's Grail.
You wait for a moment, and there is no answer. About 10 seconds passes, and then the door suddenly is flung open towards the inside, and very quickly you are enveloped in a hug by your mother, Millicent.
Aww.
The rest of you, a woman who is younger than you're expecting, maybe late 30s or early 40s, hard to tell at a glance, but very young for having someone who is supposedly a daughter that is Grail's age.
She's looking hot.
Oh no.
She has on a long sleeve plaid shirt, is wearing blue overalls over the top. Really wispy, dark blonde hair, and immediately just kind of scoops Grail up into a big hug, almost picking you up off the ground.
Aw. And I obviously once I register that it's her, I kind of wrap my arms around her and then kind of return the hug. I won't say anything until that's done.
It lasts a little longer than you think. It's it's good. It's just a good few seconds of just holding you tight, and then she finally backs off. And this is the first point at which she kind of takes in the rest of the group because she really only saw you up front. She kind of just looks everybody over, doesn't really say anything about it, but she's just kind of taking everybody in. Thea's obviously there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
she says, "You came back."
And I kind of offer like kind of a shy, somewhat kind of guilty kind of a smile. And I say, I was worried about you. It's been a while. I wanted to check in and see how you're doing. And then I kind of like realize that she's looking at everyone around me, behind me, and I kind of like, kind of snaps me out of the moment. And I kind of like turn sideways and say, oh, these are friends. And I kind of just gesture to them all so they can introduce themselves.
I'm going to politely like give a bow and introduce myself as Lena. I've been traveling with Grail for a few weeks, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
She comes over and gives you a very hearty handshake.
I return it. At first, I'm kind of surprised, but then I'm like, yes, handshake, perfect.
Surprisingly firm, and these are the hands of someone who definitely does work with them. You know, they're not super rough, but they're definitely calloused in a few spots. And it's a pretty firm handshake, and she kind of clasps her second hand over the first as she shakes your hand. But it's not tight; it doesn't hurt you. You're just like, yep, nope, she's pretty strong. I can tell just from the handshake. Or your arm's kind of like noodling a little bit as she shakes your hand.
Yeah.
I want to tell her, I've known your daughter for but a fortnight, and yet she has become one of my closest confidants and most trusted friends. She's helped me out more times than I can count. You have you've raised a very special woman.
She comes
I'm
over
like blushing.
She comes over to give you the same handshake.
Do I do better? Do I return the firm handshake?
Do
Hey,
you
I
handshake
returned
better?
it too. My arms are skinny.
You do, yes. If for no other reason than you saw what happened to Lena, so brace yourself.
Do we have a handshake off?
Absolutely.
Who wins?
We'll do it. We'll have you do dexterity checks. And she says, "That's mighty high praise. And what's your name, young man?"
It is Daniel. Daniel Faranth.
And I look at you.
I also look at you, but I'm not gonna say anything.
What was that last name?
Faranth.
Wanted to make sure that you could say it twice same way. Just right out. Okay.
I know how I got there because I wanted to go with Faraday, and I was like, that's a character from another thing. So Faranth.
Yeah, that's copyrighted. You want to get sued?
Yeah.
Tessian, assuming she's done talking to Isaac, who's Faranth. Tessian just gives her sort of a kind of a head nod, kind of bow, and says, I am Prince Tessian Nikolai Black II, and this is my fiance. And he sort of just motions with his hand over to Thea to let her introduce herself.
She says, "Thea Goldpetal," and she curtsies. And you hear this like out of Millicent, and she goes, "You found some fancy folks then, did you, Grail?"
It would seem like it. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, my eyes roll in my head when I hear his full title, and it gives me cancer, too.
Okay, but that cancer's going to cost you disadvantage down the road. Cancer is no laughing matter. Handshakes for both of you, and now she's looking expectantly at Karash.
Oh, I am Karash, Paladin of Kor. She looks healthy, Grail.
He means that is the utmost compliment, I assure you.
I laugh at this. Not like, ha 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 ha, but like, I do think it's actually funny. And like that Crash.
And I'm going in for the needlessly macho forearm shake.
Okay, she will return it. Clasps the forearm. And for just a half second, you're kind of like, she might be stronger than me. I don't know. It's not clear. I'm pretty strong. She seems pretty strong. I don't know.
Just became best friends.
She says, "Well, any friends of Grails are welcome to come inside. Please, come in. Won't do to stand out here on the front of the house for much longer."
And I walk in, and once I come in, I kind of veer around and say, "Where's Pa? How are things?"
Well, as you know, we're still in the process of trying to get things back to the way they were, so he's out trying to get some additional timber. Took the horses in the wagon and headed out a couple days ago. Should be back pretty soon. But we didn't want to use the same arrangement we did when we first replaced all the wood to help rebuild things after it was burned down. Didn't like the folks we did business with, so we figured we'd do it ourselves.
Where did he go to get timber?
He went not too far west of here to the Shademire. And Grail, you know of this place at the very least. You were sort of told not to go there as a kid. You and your brothers were all, not that it was unsafe, but, it's...
Well, sorry.
Well, and I'm going to ask, did he go alone?
He did, but he can take care of himself.
I know he can. I worry about him.
Is it a safe place, this mire shaped something?
That's it. That's the one.
Whatever it was, I asked.
She says, well...
And I know you just answered, but for the purpose of this.
There can be some creatures there, some folks that keep inside the forest itself, but nothing too out of place. I'm not much worried about it.
I'm glad to hear it. And I kind of ask, a little sheepishly, sheeps.
That's a bad pun.
I know. I had to do it, though. And that was great, too.
I gotta go. Nice to see you guys.
Yeah, no, good session, everybody.
When you made Mike leave for puns, it's bad.
You fucked up.
I'm going to say... I don't mean to just drop in with a whole circus of people, but would it be all right if we stayed the night here?
Absolutely. We'd be grateful for the company.
I would like to stay.
And I actually interrupted you, but like I do kind of mean Isaac is like, so he's just like jumping in like, so how far away is this place where he went to get timber? Cat.
It sounded like a storm that blew through.
I'm sorry, her tail hit the microphone.
She says, well, it takes you the better part of a day if you have a cart like he does with the horses, and it'll be slower going on the way back when it's weighed down by all the wood, so should be back either later today or maybe first thing in the morning.
Maybe he needs someone to just check up on him, make sure everything is okay. You never know what sort of calamity can befall folk nowadays.
She says, well, I suppose it's up to you. I wouldn't want to put you out, but if anything else, maybe he's finishing up and you can help him out. But I think he'll be fine on his own.
Maybe he just needs I am mighty good with wood happenings and the cutting and so on, the loading of said wood.
Uh-huh. And I actually say that, like, uh-huh.
Millicent also has a skeptical look, but she doesn't say anything.
Wood, it's very important. What time is it right now?
Let's see. He made camp in the mountains, journeyed there, went past that city. We're getting to be late afternoon now.
So to head out, that would put us we would get there in the middle of the night, essentially.
Probably close to midnight somewhere.
This is not a question that Tessian directly knows, but what time of day was it in Grail's vision dream? Like, was the house lit from windows or lanterns?
I guess that would be a question of would she have told us that, or did she even notice?
Did I even notice?
Okay, you didn't notice. Okay.
Yeah, from what I remember, it was like very zoom. Well, there was a bit of it from like afar, right, of the actual ranch. Wasn't there?
I think that was setting the stage for location, but sure.
Oh, okay. But yeah, it was pretty zoomed in on her on the bed, and I don't think there was any indication of the time of day. At any rate, I think it's a good idea. I'm gonna say Isaac, I don't want to say Isaac. Daniel.
Literally, it takes me a second to show you any kind of recognition when you say Daniel.
Yeah. I'm going to say if y'all want to go meet up with my pop, that's fine. And I obviously can tell you what he looks like and what he'd be with, and so you would know. But I would like to stay and catch up with my ma.
I also think you staying is a good idea. We just want to make sure that every possible avenue of this happy reunion is covered.
All right.
Well, who wants to go on the trek? I suppose we don't all have to, but
I would like talk to you somewhat quietly and ask if maybe I should stay to keep guard, but I would say that kind of hushed.
but you're the horse driver. Who's going to drive the horses?
And then I nod and say, well, you're right. I'll go then, in that case. I just want to make
pat you
sure
in the
that...
arm and be like, good, we're changing the future.
Yes. I
And-
hope so.
Tessian also pats you on the arm. There's a lot of arm patting going
I
on.
pat you harder, though.
Oh,
You like knock me
you
over.
beat me. Boom, boom. No. And he's just like, not to worry, Lena. Thea and I can keep Grail company here.
And I give you a nod of thanks, and then I guess I'll just look at Isaac and then maybe look at Karash and see if he wants to come on this expedition.
I'm gonna just kind of
A nod.
I'm going to
start
lean
nodding.
into
I'm
Crash.
not gonna say anything
Again,
because I want to say something, but I'm not gonna whisper because I don't whisper well.
I'm going to tell Karash there's a good chance, softly, there's a good chance of some head bashing. And I see your confusion. I'm like, well, you love head bashing, I thought.
Not just to do it.
I feel like I don't know you at all, but that's fine.
And I say, well, we should probably head out then, just to make sure that we can meet up with him early while we still have some light and help him bring everything back.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Let's go.
And then I am going to just, before we leave, just address Millicent again and say it was great to meet her, and we look forward to seeing her later tonight. And then I'll head out.
I don't do any of that. I just go out. I'm a man on a mission. I'm in the wagon. I'm
You're already
ready to
there.
Oh, I'm gonna be like, you don't know what it looks like.
go. That's okay. You can tell Lena.
And then I actually
All
will,
right.
like...
And then I'm like,
Actually-
that's stupid, and I come back.
Yeah, I'll
So
actually
yeah,
stay for
I
that
give you the
information.
details, and I'm not entirely sure. Like, I'm guessing since there are no horses in the stalls that he took both, after 2 or 3, whatever, and a description of what he looks like.
There are just 2. Used to be more.
Yeah. Okay.
Ain't 2. They ain't more no more.
As we're gonna head out, I'm gonna just look Grail in the eye and say family and nod.
And I'm gonna like do a stern like nod back, but like almost kind of like sarcastically, but also somewhat genuine because it's cord. It's cord. I'm looking at the thing behind your name. Yeah, I'm like looking at it like cord. It's Karash. So yeah.
So I just need to start writing stuff up there to make you say it on accident.
Yes,
from now on?
actually, that is what will happen.
Thea and Tessian, why don't one of you come with us? Just in case we need some extra help loading the wood.
Thea kind of gives you a look, Tessian.
Tessian has got his best polite guy face, and he's just like, nonsense, I'm sure you've got everything covered. We'll ensure that everything is safe here as well. After all, we have no idea what we're looking for, other than a great reunion with Grail's family. I guess we've never met, but it's an honor, it's a pleasure. It's a wonderful house you have here. He just starts looking around the property.
All right, well, yes, conversing does a lot of good too. So take care, and we will hopefully see you soon.
Yes.
Bye. I'm gonna like wave.
A little wave.
You guys just got here, and now you're leaving.
Yep. I do have to probably pet the horses a little bit, Be like, okay, we're going out again. It's been like 5 minutes, but here we go.
Going to save my dad. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, asshole.
I know. Well, I can also let you guys know that there's probably like some feed bags and stuff like that over in the stalls and some water troughs and stuff like that if you want to go feed them before you guys head out again. Like, I know it seems like a weird thing to mention, it's D&D, but you know.
I mean, if you want to get real specific about it, you probably shouldn't be feeding the horses if you're going to continue riding them right away. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You're not riding them, you're taking cards there, but still.
Oh yeah, that's easier. I forgot.
Feeding them oats is different than feeding them like an entire thing of hay, first of all. But
Yeah, but this is why you're supposed to wait half hour before you swim.
I'm going to
It's
force
true.
feed all the horses.
there we go.
That's good. That's what we want.
Roll for intimidation.
Eat this
God.
food.
Eat this food!
Eat this food, ponies. Fucking ponies.
Dear.
All right.
Tessie does tell Lena to stay safe, though. That he does say.
And I will give him a reassuring nod.
Okay. So Lena, Isaac, and Karash head out. The other three stay. Yes, I had that right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to split the party in a different way, so that's what's happening.
That's kind of
Yeah.
what I was there for.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. You know what else would be a different way?
Not.
Just Isaac.
Not splitting the party.
That cannot happen in this version. You know that.
All right. So you guys
It's
can.
just the CR of our encounter.
Yeah, I know. Cut that in half. You guys can see from the house, Tessian, Thea, and Grail, you can see from the house looking to the west as the cart heads off in that direction. And you can even see, the exterior of the Shademire, even though it's a ways off in the distance. It casts enough of a, well, not a shadow, but you can see it because it's a big swath of forest. It actually covers a substantial area. It's actually slightly bigger than the Sowen wood, just for size purposes. So it's pretty big, although you can gather just from the task at hand that her father shouldn't have gone too far in, because why would he have? Just needs wood. So, as the wagon kind of disappears off on the horizon, Millicent comes back into the sitting room and sits down in one of the nicer chairs, and she says, "Well, I'd like to hear all about what you've been up to. And I want to know about your companions, too. They seem like an interesting bunch."
Okay. I will kind of laugh and say, I honestly don't know where to begin, though you may have gotten the indication that I met Daniel. This is going to be really hard to remember. I'm sorry. I met Daniel kind of in happenstance. I kind of paused for a second before I move forward with what I'm going to say, and I then say, I was actually looking for Holden when I met Daniel. I kind of pause again, and I want to see her reaction to mentioning Holden.
Make an insight check.
Okay.
Are we still on the porch?
No,
No, we went in.
she's invited you all into the sitting room, and I was
Okay.
assuming that conversation was happening inside it, even if people weren't seated. That would
Sorry.
not do. It would not do to have you stand outside. That's not
two.
proper
That'll do, Pig.
hospitality.
That'll do. Oh, I got a 4.
Doesn't seem to flinch.
Hmm.
Still
Okay.
continues to look interested, but doesn't seem off-put by the mention of his name. Even though you're kind of expecting a reaction, there doesn't seem to be one.
So even though I'm struggling to get a read on my mom, I will kind of like pause and say, have you heard from him?
Not for a couple months now. No.
Okay.
We've gotten a couple things in the mail. He's
Really?
sent funds a couple of times, but last time he was here, he said he wouldn't be back for some time. Said it was
Sounds like Holden.
said it was too dangerous to visit. And we tried to talk him out of going, but you know how he gets.
I do. Maybe more than you even know, but I do know. Okay. And I kind of stop and I'm letting this sink in, and then I kind of shake myself out of it and I say, at any rate, I met Daniel. I don't even remember where I met him. Where did I meet him, Gris? It was
Not Denard.
What was that city called? I don't have to go back into
it's
your...
It is in literal,
Was
like...
it Denard? No, that was.
No. Dinar was where the pre-stream thing took place, but where you got bodied by the Duke was a different city, and I don't think I have it off the top of my head
That's okay.
because that's
Whatever.
in your
It's fine.
backstories.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So yeah, I met Daniel
in a town.
in a town, and he was not in a good way at all. And I decided to care for him, and we've been traveling partners since. We met up with Tessian and Lena and Karash, and I kind of paused and I roll my eyes, kind of thinking about it. I'm like, there's so much, Ma. You wouldn't believe it. There's so much out there in the world, and I had no idea. And Lena is some chosen elf from the woods, and it's overwhelming. I didn't know there was so much out there in the world. It's scary. It's exciting. I mean, I never asked this of her before. Have you seen much of this area, or even further out of the area? It's so much.
She says, I used to do a bit of traveling. I've seen some of the continent, especially over towards Lacidian and things along the way between the two places. I had a little bit more of an adventurous spirit before I met your father, but you know him, he was the type who liked to settle down and stay in one place, and so I've been doing the same thing ever since. So I'm a little rusty on my traveling, but I'm glad you're getting to experience it and get out of this place for a bit.
Well, I'm not surprised. I've always kind of had your adventurous spirit, Ma. And I kind of like put my hand like on her knee. And I kind of like turn to Tessian and Thea and kind of expect them to just kind of talk about themselves a little bit.
Gosh. Tessian's like, well, we met your daughter, and as she said, we've been traveling ever since. It's been quite a delightful journey. Some ups and downs, of course, but she's been a stalwart companion along the way, and we're lucky to have met her. He's not really sure. He doesn't really offer up information about himself that much, so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Think how jealous Isaac would be if you just opened up to Grail's mom.
Yeah. Well, he's not here, so maybe you should just spite him.
And Thea says, well, I haven't been around for too long. I only met your daughter recently, but I'm Testian's fiance, and I'm traveling with the group for a short time until I head back to my own things, but it really has been a pleasure so far.
But Tessian does. But what about you? God, do we know her name? Have you said it out loud? Did you say it though?
Yeah.
Out loud? Okay.
Did you?
Did you? Tessian's like, so how have things been at the farm? I must admit, it's been some time since I've been anywhere so rural.
You guys, all three of you can make a perception check. And again, Grail, yours is with advantage. This is sort of like your favorite terrain if you were a ranger.
Yeah.
Well, if there's a Babadook in your house, we can hunt it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I only got a 7.
Oh, I have to actually roll for Thea. Nope.
17.
5. It's a nice interior. Grail, the one thing you notice, although again this is not new to you necessarily, is that there still aren't like the decorations that there once were. It's a lot more utilitarian than it once was before the attack, and that has not, again, changed since your memory of it from a couple months ago when you left to go out, for the last time. The thing you're noticing that's missing still, as it was, is there's not a lot of pictures on the wall. There used to be family shots, and many of those were lost in the fire, and as a result, it seems like they just haven't been replaced.
Mm-hmm.
And in response, she says, well, we get by. I mean, things haven't been great since the ranch was attacked, and I don't know if business was ever exactly booming before that, but even so, we do have kind of a niche market in this area and not a lot of competition, so we get by. We're not exactly thriving, but it's enough, and enough is as good as a feast, right?
Tessian nods.
I say, I noticed when we came through in the cart that the number of sheep seems to have maybe not dwindled, but kind of stayed the same since I left. I've been gone a while. Is everything okay?
For the first time, you kind of see at least a small reaction out of her, and she's always kind of difficult to read. Like she does not wear her emotions on her sleeve. She's actually, pretty strong interior-wise, and she does kind of look a bit crestfallen. She says, well, I mean, you know what happened when the fire started. And even though we were successful at rounding up a decent number of the ones that got out and weren't hurt by the initial attack, it put a dent in our numbers. There's no two ways about it. And there hasn't been enough time to have any successful breeding yet. And the one pratfall of being the one place to go for sheep in the area is it's not like we can go out to the sheep store and pick up some more. So we're hurting a bit. If we're meant to supply them all to the area and for all their various purposes, not a lot of places to go to replenish. We're doing what we can, but it ain't easy.
Yeah, I was hoping for better news on that front, but I'm honestly not surprised. And I kind of stop for a second and I say, do you need any help around the ranch? Do you need any sheep shorn, chores, anything like that need to get done while Pa's out? I'd be happy to chip in, of course.
She kind of lights up a little at this. She says, well, I know you've always been a sturdy hand. Your pa took care of everything as much as he could, knowing he was going to be gone for a couple days, but there's always work to be done. Damn sheep keep growing the damn hair out. You know how that works.
Oh, yes.
So it'll be fine. I could use some help, sure. It'll be like old times.
It will be. I'd be happy to. In fact, I'm oddly enough looking forward to that. I miss that routine of caring for the sheep. It's something about it has always appealed to me very much.
She looks over at Tessie and Thea. She's like, now the best question here is, will you join us? Got any experience with sheep?
Tessian shakes his head. He's like, no, I can't say I have, but I'm sure we could help. And he's just sort of shrugging and looking at Thea like, I guess we're going to shear sheep. That's a thing now.
Oh, this is cute.
And Thea's like, well, I can't say I've really ever done it either, but I'm happy to help if I can. Your hospitality has been more than generous. It only seems fair.
And I kind of grin and I say, there's a trick to it. You got to keep them still, but you got to also and make sure that they know who's boss. But you got to be gentle too. There's a lot of push and pull with these things.
Tessia's, I'm excited to try.
And Thea's like, he's really not, but he'll do his best, and so will I. She says, Millicent says, well, no time like the present. I mean, the sun's going to be setting soon. We could get a couple things done and then come in and have a good meal if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Sounds delightful.
All right,
so,
I can lead them out to... Well, are they out in the pasture? Because I would probably have to gather them, which we should do anyway.
Yeah, it's getting to be nighttime, so you could gather them up best you can. Of course, no horses to help with the task, but still.
We probably have sheepdogs, yeah?
Yeah. You could grab the couple sheepdogs that are there and have them help herd them.
I would hope so. Yeah. They can herd them for
Yes.
us. All right. I'll get I'll find a little hook, the little hooks, the shepherd's hooks, probably by the barn, and head on out to the pasture.
Okay. Make an animal handling check with advantage.
And this
Oh,
is where the
boy.
angel appears to give you the good news.
I know, right? It's
Do
so
we all get a hook?
Oh my god, you guys all need hooks.
Good, because Tessian's definitely hooking Thea a little bit to pull her closer, just to give it a try.
That's like a Bo Peep moment. That's cute.
Mhm.
I got an 11. I'm really bad at animal handling. I don't know why. I shouldn't have that as a negative, but
And Tessie, you can just make a straight check. I could say disadvantage, but that seems mean since you're just testing it on Thea, so just a regular animal handling check.
Gosh, I just can't be that good.
no.
Lay 5.
It lands at Thea's feet, and she just kind of looks down at it, and she's like, well, almost. Let's see how she does. She wants to try it on you. Oh, that's not bad. Let's see, it's wisdom, though, so it's only a +1. But a 14. Yeah, she takes to it a little more quickly than you do.
That's cute.
But she's always been a little better with, I don't want to say manual labor, but, She's only been a little more active than you have, so it's not
Get your
surprising to
hands
you.
dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tessian's very much not about getting his hands dirty or anything else dirty. That's why he has prestidigitation.
Exactly. Exactly. Now you know.
This much pretty takes work.
Exactly.
That's his bread and butter right there.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys watch as Grail, with the help of the sheepdogs, is able to kind of corral the sheep into the pen. And then she and her mother kind of start working on trimming some of the more unruly ones that have grown out a bit more. And so working on shearing them and just checking up on everybody, making sure all the sheep are in good condition. And they all kind of seem to be. Even though the numbers are not what they should be, they are in good care. Even if you don't know sheep all that well, you can just kind of tell, like, they're not emaciated, they don't look like miserable. They're all in good shape. There's just not enough of them to be as viable for business as they would like.
They're also smelly and
Yes.
they're cute. And when I get a nice hunk of wool, I'm gonna like throw it at Tessian.
He'll kind of like catch it and like foof it. Is it?
Right.
Is it foofy? Is it foofy or is it rough?
This is what the gloves of missile snaring were intended for.
Right.
Yeah, just.
Sheep rockets.
I like how this is like the montage from Zoolander. It's just like the happiest
I
thing
know.
ever.
Right.
And it's gonna cut to the gas station explosion. That's gonna be us.
Wake me up before you
Yeah.
go. It's not quite as rough as you're expecting. It's pretty soft overall. And you're surprised because it hasn't really been treated or anything at this point. It's just coming pretty much fresh off. And yet, despite the fact that they're, outside a lot and in kind of rough conditions, at least compared to, like an inside area, it's nice. You can see why this is a quality product. It's just, again, even you can kind of tell just from your limited understanding, because you have some business sense at the very least, that like, yeah, this is probably not enough.
You get the raised eyebrows of approval. Well, this is nice. And then he hands it to Thea so she can foof it.
She's a fan. She's like squishing it in her hands, kind of molding it, and then she places it on top of her head and just kind of like pats down on it gently, so it like changes form a little bit, like squishes down.
So my mom had mentioned that the breeding had been bad. So I'm guessing there are none to milk, right? If there's none that are pregnant or have kids.
There are not any to milk. No.
Damn, that's rough. That sucks because that's usually a pretty lucrative thing.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, shearing it is. Shearing and feeding.
Yep.
Tessian's trying to be helpful, but he's more like that guy that's sort of like awkwardly standing to try to keep the sheep where they're supposed to be. And then like one of them will be like rowdy and he'll be like, no, be nice. No.
Yeah, and I'm kind of just like, I'm kind of like, oh, like bring me that one or whatever. And if they're in any way unruly, I'm just like, let them go and I'll go get them myself. But yeah, I'm not expecting much from Tessian, though I am definitely watching how he's trying, and I appreciate that. So yeah.
Whereas Thea is more up close and personal with this, so when you're going to shear some of them, she's coming up and like watching very closely, intently, seems interested in what you're doing, is asking questions about like the technique and why this direction instead of that, and she's all about this because she seems to have an earnest approach to wanting to help.
Mm-hmm.
And she picks it up pretty well overall. Obviously nowhere near your level of aptitude, but it's enough where you're like, this is not a liability. She's helping.
Cool. All right.
I'm the liability.
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit. That's okay.
That's all
Someone
right.
has to be.
Just imagine how Karash would have done if he were here.
Oh boy.
Lamb chops. Let's go.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
You gotta eat good.
Goes to shear one, cuts its leg off, cuts its other leg off.
Pushes it in a corner, tries to hide it.
Right.
Yeah.
Intimidates one, starts drowning it in a trough.
He just like engraves cord in the sheep's.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like we're mischaracterizing Karash just a little bit here with the violence.
You come out the
They
next
all
morning.
deserved it.
Come out the next morning. All of them have the symbol of cord in their.
Okay,
in their...
you could shear cord into one of the sheep's sides and you wouldn't hurt it.
But alas, he went with the other group.
Truly.
So it takes a couple hours to get all
I'm
this
gonna
done.
shear it into your dad instead.
Good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cut off his
that's
arm
fine.
and his leg. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll help.
I imagine my dad as a sheep now. Like, that's weird. I don't.
We just learned something about your mom.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it does explain why the numbers might be down.
Yeah.
So, it takes a couple hours, and it's hard work, even for the people who are maybe a little less involved. You can tell, like, yeah, this is definitely a lifestyle you have to choose, and not one you go into lightly, because 2 people, and in this case now 1 with some helpers, that's a lot to take on. But after a couple hours of work, she says, and this is as the sun is kind of starting to set, she says, I think that ought to do for now. I appreciate you guys' help, but don't want to put you to work too much. What do you say we go inside and have a nice meal?
Tessian, who's like standing by the one sheep that like doesn't move around a lot, so like he's like made a friend of them all because this one's not wandering, and he's like, that sounds great. That sounds great. And he's just petting the sheep.
That's cute.
I couldn't decide if Michelle was touched or horrified.
No, it's cute.
For a second, that was a horrified mouth, and I was like, uh-oh.
No.
So, heading back inside the Le Ranch house.
Late ranch.
It's
house.
French now. I don't know why. Shut up.
Sure.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
So she has Grail come in the kitchen and help her start whipping up some food, and we'll switch to the other group.
Hey.